The pledge of allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
4 present and 1 online. First thing we have on the agenda is a proclamation of Cancer Awareness Month. Come on up, girls.
You guys, in the past, we've also celebration for breast cancer. But over the years, Winneshiek County Celebration of Life now takes care of all forms of cancer. If you are a resident of Winneshiek County or your, how do I want to say? Primary care person is in Winneshiek County. Winneshiek County furnishes you with fuel, and food cards. And we have expanded it to all ages and all cancers now. So that's why we chose to move it to an August proclamation to cover everything. Winneshiek County Celebration of Life has been doing good work for over 20-some years. We've helped literally thousands of people. One of our programs, we do free mammogram screenings for people that are non-insured or underinsured. Our second program, which includes all cancers, all people, is our fuel and food cards.
That somebody else is signing you up.
Or you can, yes,
Yeah.
go to our,
Somebody nominates, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
if you go to our website, Winneshiek COL, our forms are on that. The amount is not correct. We have increased our amount. We now do $100 in food and we do $300 in fuel. So for your active treatment, that helps you with some important work. Even if your treatments are held in Decorah now, because Decorah does a lot, you're still taking it off of work. If it's a child, if it's a member of anybody. And the community has been very good to us to sponsor. So every penny in donation we get, we turn back to the community. So we have, do you want to read the proclamation, or Ben, do you want to? Do you want to?
Sure.
Make sure you know what you're signing before you sign.
Supervisors do hereby proclaim the month of August 2023 is Cancer Awareness Month. We encourage citizens, government agencies, private and corporate businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other interested groups to help increase awareness of what we can do to prevent, curtail, and pay tribute to those who have had their lives impacted by this disease.
I move for August as
I second.
We have a motion in a couple seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
We have a really thick pen because we like for you guys to pass it around and sign it, please. And she's got,
If you want to use this pen.
because other pens don't work on that paper well. And then we will use this throughout the year now at different events and that.
Margaret, I'd be happy to come in and sign that next week when I'm back from vacation if you'd like.
Okay, we can do that.
That'd be perfect. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
We would appreciate a picture with us and you guys for now. Actually, just we'll let you sign and then hold the proclamation and we'll do a picture.
Girls have had a busy morning.
Yeah.
We've been going for quite a while. We're gonna make some more stops. We are putting on an event, November 3rd at Impact Coffee, which is our. And so we'll have more publicity out about that. We stay pretty busy.
Yeah.
This has impacted so many women and men in Winneshiek County. Thanks for the work you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we include children, right? So we're assisting families with children too.
Yes, thank you.
Are we good?
You're good.
Can you see us? Okay.
Looks very good. Awesome, and I've got a couple more to take. She's gonna grab hers. And, okay. I need coffee. Good, thank you so much.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do we have for consent agenda? Okay.
I got the reporter's monthly report for the minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion?
Just on minutes. Rebuild truck 151, isn't that a blade 151?
Yeah, like a blade.
That's not an expensive truck.
Yeah, I'll change.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Andy did look at the 2080 agreement that the county social services is upgrading, said it was fine, so I'll submit that.
Next week's, then, please, on the 28th.
I don't think it has to be. It's just all the counties are in on it, so I don't know if we have to approve it necessarily.
I think we, yeah.
Okay.
Good, I get it to me, I'll put it on next week's agenda. So it probably takes Dan's signature, so I guess. Should get.
Then we received a letter that the Smith Building as of June 20th, 23 has been added to the state National Registry of Historic Places.
There is a presentation Saturday morning at 8:30 at the Historic Preservation Commission on all the research that was done on historic mills in the county. That's here in this room. There'll be a presentation by the fellow out of Cresco who did all of the work on assembling all of the data and categorizing it all and recording it. So it's going to be probably about a 30-minute presentation of his data. Should be quite interesting for all of the historic mills. Then they have a publication that's in process or soon coming out.
The picture of that mill in the paper was interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
We had a lot of them.
Yeah. think in 1880, there were 30 in Winneshiek County, over 30 mills. One thing I was gonna bring up, we talked about the leaving trees or looking at the campus here, putting trees in. It might be good to actually have somebody do a plan, because the trees that are failing. How's that gonna happen? So we just don't start plopping trees down, kind of willy-nilly, so to speak. I don't know if I'm looking to hiring somebody, or maybe there's volunteers out there that want to do that. I don't think we need to hire anybody.
Find a credible volunteer.
Yeah.
Might be-
I think if we could find a credible volunteer that would want to look at a landscaping plan for the courthouse. If you look at it, historically, there was always some sort of a plan as far as the walls and things when the projects were done, so.
And some of these ash trees are failing pretty quickly.
There's one out in the middle here for sure, and these two are going. That one maple is probably needs to come down. So, anyway. Press wants to put out that we're looking for volunteers to look at a landscaping plan. That would be great.
Bethany,
They maybe have a landscape architect as well.
that's the.
They're not gonna be cheap.
No,
No, I can hire nobody. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That is an option.
No, maybe there's a grant out there we can get to do it, do something else.
We'd have to have one.
They show us where to plan. We got bigger fish to fry than that. We need a new roof on this here.
There's a lot of local talent that might be willing to do this as a pro bono project. So I think it's worth looking into.
Really had an interesting question of why there was a no right turn sign on Winnebago Street, right in the middle of where we put those right next to where we redid the steps. Why there was a no right. What was it, Shirley?
You can't read it.
You're muted, Shirley.
I can hear about every other word you're saying on the feed right now, but I think you're referring to the no right turn sign. And we realized after asking Andy, it was kind of funny. We were both perplexed by that. It's for when people come out of the driveway by the attorney's office to remind them that it's a one-way. But it's kind of hard to see because it's in front of the cars that are parked there. I just had never noticed it before, and it's been there for years.
interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I guess it has a purpose.
Yep. Minor, but it's there. But it would puzzle you.
And 45 here, we have Kelvin Rue, Lincoln Township Trustee, request for fire truck financing. Wanna,
Here with, Chet Decker. Bert. Mark Harlan is our, fire chief. Is on fire department also. You guys want to come over?
Yeah, you guys.
And, we're looking at, replacing our pumper in Ridgeway. And,
Yeah.
I guess there's a couple different things we're looking for from you guys. We have some of the money that we're still, we'll have to borrow some money. And we were wondering if the county would be able to help out a little bit with it, possibly. financially.
I guess we gave Troutman 30,000 here a while back. I mean, they called me on it, so I said, come to the board and we'll get it passed.
What's the cost?
We got a couple different bids. The cheapest one was 440,000.
And that would be brand new one.
Everything would be brand new on that, so. The truck that we're replacing is a 1995 model, so serves well, but it's time's due, so. We did have another bid that was like $80,000 higher, so.
So the low one was 400 what?
About 440,000.
We as a fire department have money that we've saved from fundraisers as well. We're gonna do another fundraiser.
Yeah, we'll do a direct mailing or something like that. At the max asking rate for ever anticipating this with inflation went faster than their. We did a fundraiser about 10 years ago for a different truck and we raised what, 30,000, something like that. So we're anticipating at least that, possibly a little more. Right now we'd have to borrow about 190,000. And I went to the bank in Ridgeway and, as far as a 5-year repayment plan, the numbers don't quite work. So but with a vehicle, I just hate to put it on an 8-year note, you know.
Was there a trade-in value?
No.
Yes, most fire trucks get used until they're, near end of life, and I think the last one we sold and it got pieced out to a couple of area farmers. Yeah,
And luckily we had two that bid against each other, so.
yeah. And if we, if it goes to auction, I'd be surprised, maybe 10,000 for it, maybe. Who knows, but, yeah. You never know. It's kind of a single use thing and it's their end of life.
And whether the board decides to contribute or not, you are gonna ask them we'll probably have to co-sign the note.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah, the importance of our rural fire departments is without question, very, very valuable.
Yeah.
What have we done historically with other municipalities like Frankville or?
We gave Troutman 30,000 here. They came in. They're building a new shed, new building. Yeah. And,
Gave money towards the aerial ladder truck when Decorah bought that. And that's used all around, not just at Decorah, but even the neighboring counties, because we have one of the biggest ones, so.
Yeah, that was ordered to Ridgeway this spring.
Yeah.
I guess if we could match what we gave Troutman, I don't know if we can come up, discuss it and see.
What budget would that come out of? If we did.
I think your time, did you want to go into the buying what you told me on the phone about buying it?
The chassis is gonna would be here, anywhere from 2 to 6 months.
That's what we believe, yeah.
And then it'll take about 6 months, I think, to do it on, about a year in chassis and probably 6 months to build the track part. We understand, but that's why, everybody knows the automotive and truck industry is here.
So it wouldn't probably be till next budget that they need, because they have enough money, my understanding is they have enough money to buy the chassis. So they don't need that, it's when it comes time to build the truck out is where they're gonna have to come up with their financing. So we aren't actually, you don't need to do any action today, but they probably wanna, or they order it, kind of know if they have the financing lined up, so.
It's 30,000 will probably get your payment down in that 5 or 6 year.
It should.
And if you do a little fundraiser, probably.
Yeah.
Get you in the.
And with the corn is plentiful this fall too, that makes a difference.
Yeah. That's just we call it too. Yeah.
We did talk to, when I talked to CUSB there in Ridgeway, they kind of mentioned that we'd get a special rate.
Right. Okay, so,
That would have all.
size one earlier.
So what other fire districts are in Winneshiek County?
Oh.
Yeah.
Ridgeway, Kelmer,
Castalia,
Castalia,
Who has their own
Frankville.
shop?
Frankville.
And then in the northern parts of the county, some of the Minnesota districts, fire districts come in.
Well, and even Ridgeway goes over and to Howard County occasionally, don't you?
Right, yeah, but then we match up with Canton to the north.
North.
So there's 7 fire departments based in Winneshiek County and the towns, but 15 different fire departments come into Winneshiek County.
Bill's the only one on the fire department in town.
Or,
Oh, Jackson.
Yeah. because it looks so huge in the
I know.
map.
It's kind of big footprint though.
Little deceiving.
I guess ultimately the borrowing of money probably wouldn't come for quite a while yet.
Well, I'd say here, that'd be a couple good.
So do we need a motion to put, to,
I don't think you did a motion today. When it comes time to do the borrowing, we'll have to involve a bonding attorney to make sure we have all our ducks in a row. And that's part of the special rate is if you get everything set up right, they can get a tax exempt loan. So the bank can give them a little better rate because they aren't gonna pay
Tax on that.
tax on the interest, so. So that would be something, you know, a month or two before the point you wanna borrow, you're gonna need to talk to us, to make sure we get all that, because I'll have to hold a public hearing and so on, and get everything lined up.
And something that we've learned, don't really believe the timeline they give you for getting a truck.
Took us 2 years to fix.
Yeah.
A year.
I have a question. Can you hear me? How often are you called in to serve Howard County? What % of your time is spent in Howard County? And I'm wondering if you've asked them as well.
Within the last year, when Cresco had a big fire in downtown and Decorah did too, and several other departments. More often they're helping us.
But we
By far,
you know, the spring there on the highway and.
But that was in Winneshiek County and their fire district. Yeah, and if you look at the map of the fire districts for Winneshiek County, all of Orleans, I believe, is covered by Cresco Fire Department.
Oh, yeah.
And then north of there, it's Harmony and then Canton and I think Maple Spring Grove as well, you know, when you circle around that way, but, a lot of times if we're helping Cresco, for instance, it's in Winneshiek County too.
Right.
So,
And even in, Protoman responds into much of
yeah,
Winneshiek County and even down into cooperating with both Ford and Kelmer.
yeah.
Thank you.
Easily done.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, I mean, I'm not against helping out, but I think that it's gonna set precedent, you know, going in the future. How many districts we're gonna be, but we're gonna be giving, so. That's why I said historically, sort of, they help people when they're buying equipment.
Yeah, we have.
Protoman. Yeah, with the Protoman, Decorah.
Have we done anything with Frankville recently?
The last couple, Kelmer and, I think maybe even Ridgeway, the last time you bought a truck, the board participated with those co-sign and financing, but didn't give any cash. But
Yeah, in many different dimensions that to continue to provide service, and what they do for the county is remarkable.
It's just that one time is all it takes. Yeah, I mean, you can't put a $1 figure on that. That's fine.
No, you guys dedicate a lot of hours that no one
Yeah,
sees.
nobody, I mean, the volunteers that, yeah, you guys, yeah, you don't get no paycheck for what nobody does.
For rolling out of bed in the
I
middle of
guess
the night or any time of the day.
I got no problem with helping out in any way we can. Cause, I mean, community, I mean, yeah, I don't care which district it is, fire, I mean, you're all same. You put a lot of time and short on help. Thankless help is what it gets to be at the end of the day, yeah, short of help and. Like if you make a call out, if you get one response, you're probably lucky, right?
That's all we had in common. We had 3 departments there and everything worked well and
Yeah,
we all work well together. We
that's,
know each other.
yeah, that's the big thing. I guess I see no problem with it.
I agree.
Just one other comment. I think we need to be careful not to make any decisions today or promises today till we know what our budget looks like. I think we all, 100% of us support the fire department and volunteer firefighters, absolutely. But we also have to be careful with the tax dollars. So I think this is a further discussion.
I think that's appropriate to talk about the actual dollar amount at
Yeah.
budget time. But I think you can probably agree that you will do the co-signing.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
been-
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been a tradition, because most of the fire departments and townships don't have the.
Bonding capacity.
Yes.
Yeah, so then.
So we can definitely tell you that today, I think, if everybody got figured out.
And you can, I'm absolutely believe this is a priority in our budgeting, so it has a high ranking, place in my mind.
And just to let you know, we didn't let Protivin know right off on the first day that.
No.
Yeah.
So don't think it's a no when you're gonna walk away. So there's a strong positive.
But we'll, work on it and see what we can.
Please,
Financing's definite.
please continue to impress upon our state representatives that we don't need to cut finances at the state level to the counties and the way that they approach it in the budgeting matter. Maybe the cuts can be at the state level. Cities too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll. Thank you over.
All right.
Great.
Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You want to come up and take the chair, Krista?
Let's see.
How those fire departments are putting the top area too, and increasing price on those trucks. That's
Yeah.
unreal. Next on the agenda, 10 o'clock, Krista Vanden, Brink, Public Health Director, you have an update on HHS alignment.
Yes, I've been told that this is, well, it is a very abstract concept. And that, there's a lot of questions and really not many answers. So I'm going to do my best to share with you in the time that I've got, kind of where things have started from and where they're currently at. And then I'll have some handouts that I'll be able to leave with you so that you can go through them at your leisure. So during the 2022 legislative session, the structure of Iowa's government was actually changed by merging the Iowa Department of Public Health and the Iowa Department of Human Services in the appropriations bill. There had been previous discussions about what a possible merger would look like, and actually it was very frightening. DHS had had some very bad publicity about some child abuse cases and deaths, and not knowing how many employees they had on their payroll. And that was all we were hearing, okay? And so merging those two large departments was actually put on hold indefinitely. In July of 2022, DHS and Iowa Department of Public Health did merge. So it's been in code now. And also in 2022, Iowa's Governor Reynolds announced plans to make state government operate more efficiently and effectively. One of those plans included the reduction of 37 cabinet level positions to 16 positions. This would also eliminate several unfilled positions and is projected to save millions of dollars for the state. The Departments of Human Services and Public Health individually currently issue several hundred contracts to a variety of entities. And just realize that is a cumbersome entity or a cumbersome task for any entity, right? So during this time, there was, and still are, a lot of chatter about regionalization, combining services, the elimination of jobs, and service maps. There are also more questions than answers and a whole lot of assumptions. When locals would ask the state for clarification, the answer we would get is, we don't know what this is going to look like. We have to let the process roll out. Others seem to think that leaders already have a plan in place and that this is just a check the box type of situation to make it look like we're asking for input. Some have even suggested there have been secret meetings. So all of this has created a lot of mistrust between local entities, not just public health, but local entities and the state. And that's not a good thing to have when we all need to work together. As of July 2023, the Department of Aging, the Department of Human Services, Early Childhood Iowa, Volunteer Iowa, and the Iowa Childhood Advocacy Board have become a part of the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. Per the website, it says that government departments and agencies that provide related services or have similar business functions are aligning to better serve Iowans. The site goes on to state that consumers can expect that same quality of service to continue, and the goal is to meet the needs more effectively and efficiently through better coordination. HHS contracted with Health Management Association, or HMA, to conduct an assessment with goals to give a clear understanding of, this is where we get very abstract, the purpose, rationale, and historical context of current service delivery systems, to scan providers within service delivery systems, funding and resources for service delivery systems, linkages between service areas in current delivery system and Medicaid programs, target and priority populations, including a number of individuals currently being served, decision makers and partners involved in service delivery systems, operational capabilities and gaps of the state and local system for service delivery system, and to address lessons learned from the pandemic. Okay.
That's all?
That's all. I want the world, right? So during the summer, HHS and HMA have been conducting in-person stakeholder sessions or town hall meetings, and they also did 3 virtual sessions. And the following 18 stakeholders were invited to attend, and they did. Local governmental public health, mental health delivery regions, certified community behavioral health centers, iSmiles, environmental health, aging and disability resource centers, WIC, maternal and child health, area agencies on aging, family planning, early childhood Iowa, tobacco community partnerships, community action agencies, DCAT, emergency preparedness regions, local public health delivered Medicaid services, community partnerships for protecting children, and the integrated provider network. I cannot tell you what they all do. At each of the town hall meetings, the conversation has actually been very rich and spirited, and some concrete ideas have been shared. Facilitators have been good to engage participants to highlight what's working well, what challenges exist, and what could utilize some more attention. There have been a limited number of positive comments that were expressed though. The positive comments revolve around greater access to data, better access to resources needed for large disease investigations, and a more consistent funding process for services across the state. Additional efficiencies that could be achieved include one application for all services, especially child services programs. And virtually all counties expressed concerns about mental health, affordable childcare accessibility, and accessible affordable housing needs. While these are all good things, there were many more concerns shared. For instance, the state legislator is put on record for indicating that there is a political plan to move programs to population centers and to private nonprofit agencies. This same legislator was asked about what the plan would be for services for rural Iowa, and her response was that there is no plan for rural Iowa. When challenged about not having a plan for rural Iowa, she indicated that those living in rural Iowa are choosing to live there. If we would all agree that we do, okay, we are, and that they should accept the fact that there will be less services for them. That doesn't sit well with a lot of us in rural Iowa, all right?
No.
So try telling that to the farmers, to the factory workers, and to the constituents of our small towns that make up Winneshiek County. Okay, that's a real slap in the face as far as I'm concerned. I think there's also a concern, I know there's concern about sending tax dollars to an organization that would not be housed in the county, that wouldn't even be providing services to the county. And that you, as Board of Supervisors, would have no say-so in governing that, okay?
It's called par for the course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Board of Supervisor members who have participated in some of these town hall meetings have expressed the concern about the potential for unfunded mandates, as often is the case when organizations quote unquote align as a way to save money. Concerns also revolve around the need to keep local control so that we can continue to help our residents. We know who to call when situations arise. We know who our partners are, whether or not we always work with them, but we know those people. And the rest of the counties surrounding us don't have those relationships. For instance, public health exists in all 99 counties, and we're open 5 days a week, and much of the work that we do revolves around the 10 essential public health services. I've got a handout for you on that one. There have also been some focus group sessions held between HMA and hand-selected personnel from people in those 18 categories that I talked about before. The speed at which all of this is occurring should be setting off some alarms. A final report of the findings with at least 2 service delivery models and at least 2 funding models are due to leaders at HHS by October. One of the service delivery options that may be presented may be to just leave it all alone. There has been significant talk that this will be decided within the first couple weeks of the upcoming legislative session, much like what was done with the school voucher system, and people are very concerned about that. They've just likened the two. A stakeholder survey was sent out and responses have already been recorded. It is still open until August 1st or August 11th. And I can still get you that link. I can send it to you or send it to Ben and he can send it to you because it is available for elected officials. An additional survey is scheduled to be released this week and will be open until August 24th. We will be sharing it with others so that consumers, partners, additional stakeholders, and the general public can actually respond to this. All of this is very quietly happening at the state level, unbeknownst to the consumers, the very people who are utilizing the services. And there will be opportunities that we're going to like and some suggestions that we're not going to. And I think it's best for us to make sure that we continue to have conversations about this as we learn more. I know I should ask you, who is going to Isaac? Okay, supposedly this is a hot button topic that's going to be discussed down there. I cannot be cloned. I've been told I cannot be cloned. I would like to be. I need to be in about 5 different places that day. And Isaac would be one of those places that I would need to be at. So I did go to, I'm just going to share some handouts. And I don't have all of these for you, but just to share with you, this was the public notice that was sent to us. It did have the 18 different entities listed, and it had the town hall meetings and the virtual sessions listed on the back. The assessment timeline is that in July and August, town halls, stakeholder surveys and interviews are going to be held. In August, now HMA is assessing the current state and taking a look at all of the information that's been collected from surveys, from the town hall meetings, and from those interviews. And then in September, they're going to identify some options and make recommendations, delivering those final results in October to HHS. And that information is found on the HHS website. So I will share with you that I did include some different comments that were, they were all spoken at the Waverly meeting that I was at. I took 2 pages of notes, just writing every single comment down. And listen into some of those comments, and just to share with you, and they're kind of all over the board, right? So there is some difficulty maneuvering the process in the system, and they specifically pointed to the Department of Human Services on that one. Technology is challenging. We know that not all of these individuals have access to technology or issues with internet. Okay, we experience that here in our county. There's concerns about local control. People really want to know what's the goal of alignment. Nobody can answer that question other than to say to make government more effective and efficient. We need a little bit more definition there. Some counties have indicated that they would like to see some consistent accessibility across the state. So not all the services are available all over the state, all right? The population centers, so we think about metropolitan areas, they're going to have more access. And rural Iowa, we just do a few more things. We just throw a few more things on our plate to say that we're taking care of those services. Unfunded mandates was listed. The rolling out of programs is usually not a good thing. There's been talk that we need to actually hire more billers because the billing has become more complex. And this one really stuck out with a lot of us. We're asked to do so much for communities on a shoestring budget. We need better communication from the state. This was a supervisor who made this comment, who said, I would hate to see any changes to community actions and public health agencies because that would just ruin them. And as a board of supervisor, I'm going to have to deal with those changes in answer to the public. We also listed what services do individuals need that residents struggle to get. So we talked about mental health, we talked about affordable housing, substance abuse, transportation, accessibility to dentists who accept Title 19, the housing, the childcare. Comments were also made that boards of supervisors often are able to look at population numbers, but you don't necessarily know the different services that are offered. And people at the state have indicated that there is some duplication, and locals have pushed back and said that the notion of duplication is a misnomer. And public health and community action agencies have a presence in all communities, and we're backfilling what DHS and a lot of other entities aren't able to do. So, I mean, there's lots of topics there. Jamie Cashman at Isaac is going to be your point person. So hopefully you're going to be getting some contact and some more information from him. Obviously at Isaac, you will. I would love to hear. I would love to be a fly on the wall and hear what's going to be said. So what I've included in packets for you is a slide, PowerPoint slideshow of the HHS alignment. It's very vague, I will tell you that. I've also included a list of the timeline for you, as well as a list of the 2-page comments that I took notes on. They are not incomplete sentences, but they were just fragments of what they all said. And then finally is a 2-page or front back, the Iowa Counties Public Health Association, so ICEPA, is an organization that I'm a part of. And so we put together a sheet talking about, hey, there's some good things, there's some not so good things with this. But then on the back is a copy of the 10 essential public health services. Really everything that public health agencies are doing align with all of these. And so we need to make sure that any type of alignment still fits in to this notion. This is a federal document. But again, there's a lot of questions and there's not a lot of answers. I wish I could give you something more concrete. But what kinds of questions might you have for me that I can maybe try to answer?
Krista, what, do you have any kind of a feel as to where Jamie Cashman is in relationship to an urban feel, an urban bent or a rural bent?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that's a question to point ask him.
I've asked things
Because I don't-
before.
Jamie's gonna have more contact with you as supervisors than he will with public health.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there hasn't been conversations, but that information hasn't been shared with us. So, yeah. See, Shirley's got a question.
Thank you, Krista, and thanks for this information. It's really important for rural Iowa. And thanks for being the soldier at the front of the line for this for us. You need some help, and we're here for you for that. Jamie Cashman visits Northeast Iowa and Decorah, particularly in his spare time. So he has a place in his heart for this area, and he's very approachable, and I'd be happy to speak with him when I'm down at ISAC, and the others will too.
I think it's important to have that conversation with him. Truly, we don't know what this outcome is going to be. You know, I think there's a lot of people that are obviously scared, okay? For a lot of different reasons. And they're truly all over the board. And I understand the state saying we need to collect this information before we know what this is going to look like. I do understand that. I will tell you, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I just don't know what's going to break.
Seems it could be anything. Keep doing what you're doing to the state's taking over all county public health agencies and we're gonna do this and this and. I mean, that's big range, but that seems like those are options on the plate.
Yeah, nothing is off the table at this point in time. I wish I knew more. But I will share that link to the survey so that Ben can get it out to you guys. That it is for elected officials. I know that I've completed my part as a stakeholder. So I just encourage you to at least fill out as best you can. There will be some questions, I'm guessing, that you're not going to know the answer to. That's okay. Don't feel like you have to know the answers to those. Seriously.
It happens all the time.
Because I don't know the answers to some of them, right? I mean, I don't know what the Child Advocacy Board necessarily does unless I go in and do some research, since they're part of now HHS. I'm like, how does that fit in? Volunteer Iowa, how does that fit in? So I'm trying to put the pieces together myself.
So this merger is county public health, and then what's the other?
It's all these 18 entities that there may or may not be any merger.
Is it DHS that's out on the old highway? Is that part of this whole?
DHS and IDPH are now HHS. And then they added Department of Aging and all of those other, that list of,
18.
no, not the 18.
Part of the reason we said we don't want to jump into anything that building up there is we could have anything from,
You don't know.
they move a whole bunch of people in that are from these other entities to, we're taking them all out and sending them to a different house, so we sure know.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
Just doesn't seem like it was. Well thought out.
I know it's a county social services meetings.
Yep.
Other counties are kind of butting heads with DHS as far as sharing space, how much space they really need.
Right, yeah,
No.
it's Department of Aging, Department of Human Rights, Early Childhood Iowa, Volunteer Iowa, and Iowa Childhood Advocacy. As of July 2023, those 5 or 6 entities also became part of HHS.
And
Sure.
it sounds like they're still all working almost against each other sometimes to compete for Maybe it's not a bad thing, but how it all comes out is not a good thing either.
We're all trying to take care of people.
Yeah.
And, there may be some duplication at the state level, not necessarily at the local level.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If they go for competition for funding, who's in charge?
Shirley's got another question.
Actually, just kind of a statement question. I want everybody in the room and everybody online to realize that what Krista's alerting us to here is, it's crucial. Can you imagine public health not accessible easily by those who use those services right now and expecting them to drive to a regional center and take time off from work? This can't happen. And so we all need to be using our voices and letting our legislators know this is not acceptable. And we want to keep public health available to rural Iowa. It's crucial.
And it's not just public health, it's all of our entities.
Yeah, all the county services.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think this is a case of what looks good on paper doesn't always pan out.
I would agree with that statement. So, yes, you do have the handouts. Shirley has one in her box. If you get a hold of me, if you have some questions, I will do my best to try to find answers for you. Like I said, questions may breed questions more than anything, but I encourage you to fill out that particular survey that you will get the link to. Once we get this other survey that will be for the public, I'll be sure to let our media know so that they can also get it out as well.
Yeah, I'm confident our local media will help get the word out on this.
I think so too.
Thank you for the update there, Krista.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Krista.
Next on the agenda, a couple miscellaneous items, discuss engineer hiring procedure and timeline.
I put both of these on there, I just didn't want them to fall through the crack. On the engineer hiring, I passed out the draft of sharing agreement that would facilitate the use of another county engineer as our interim engineer. Andy put this together and has sent it that county, and they're talking about it at their board meeting today. So this will be, hopefully we can have this on the agenda next week. So if any of you have questions or comments on this, you should talk with Andy directly, because you aren't going to have another meeting before it comes up for action. So work with Andy on that. He emailed this out too, but it was just recently. So I didn't know if you had a chance to look at it. So I printed it. This is an exact mirror of the agreement that we had when Fayette County lost their engineer and was renting or sharing with us. So it's exactly the same, only we're using theirs. Even to the extent that the dollar amount was the same, but presumably that will need to be updated because that's been 15, 20 years ago when I don't remember when it was. So I'm presuming there'll be some changes after the Fayette County talks about it today, but hopefully we'll be able to get this in place next week. That was the one update. The second update is that, that's the search, the request for qualifications that I handed out. That's the second item. The first item about the sharing agreement, worked with Andy on that. This one is also a draft that we need to get sent out. How we're going to find the search firms is another question. I don't know how we search for searchers, but that's what the printout is the request to go out to search firms. So that'll be the long-term plan. Short-term plan is next week to get an interim in place. That's about what I know, but yeah.
That was Howard County, not Fayette.
Howard County, okay, yeah, sorry. It was, but the one from last time was with Fayette. So he just took that agreement and flipped it around so that we would use, yes.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I've got in here after going through it, but I'll just do those directly.
Go directly with Andy. Don't do like reply all, because then you're having an electronic meeting. So just work with Andy directly. If you have questions or comments on either this request for qualifications or the agreement, which he may not have actually mailed out the agreement yet because he wanted to get their input from today's meeting. So then you'll see that.
I believe I've seen it.
Yeah, but he did say that if they were working on it. So I've jotted that down for next week's agenda so that we can continue right now, and Jeff will probably talk about this. Basically, from the DOT, we have like breaks on everything. We can't do anything construction wise, or even some of the permits right now until we get someone in place as an interim, so.
As far as the search for agencies to help us find qualified candidates, have we checked with Iowa DOT and with ISAC? I couldn't hear you.
I have not.
Is that something Andy will be doing?
I don't know, but that's part of the question is who's gonna be in charge of finding the search firms? I mean, we can ask other counties that have done that, although I don't know that that isn't as frequent. I mean, usually the counties start with the process you did first and don't need to go to the next step, so.
From Andy's document, I would think that he has this in mind because he referenced Dubuque in part of this document. And so he had to, I would have assumed that perhaps he got some input there just because of the text of this document. But I'll ask that question.
I can also reach out to NACO and to Christy Harshberger at ISAC and to Nikki Stin at the Iowa DOT, if you'd like me to do that, but I'll check with Andy to make sure we're not duplicating efforts here.
That sounds great.
Next up on the miscellaneous, Horn Hollow Road discussion.
Yeah, I put this one on just because I know that both sides of the issue of the old road that leads to the house, that one is asked to have it vacated and the other is asked to have it marked and so that they can use it. And both sides have been continuous communication. So I want to make sure that you don't let this fall through, but at the same time, you need to have time to decide what you're doing. So I only put it on there to kind of ask, do you want it on a future agenda again? Do you want to take a tour? Do you want to start a public hearing process? But I don't know what steps you want to go.
I drove out there myself, as Mark stated he did.
And I did.
I've been there too. I mean, I guess I'd move ahead with the vacation of.
But it looks like we have two parts because we're ready for the work associated with the road down as far as Lucy's, the Shemp property. And the issues of the turnaround for the road.
That's
I'm sure that Jeff's ready. That seems to be
That's completely separate. That needs to go forward either way. You need to reestablish the current road as a road and a turnaround because that needs to just happen. And so that's kind of muddying this because that needs to happen. There's no question about that. What the question is, and then there's really no question about the road past that point that's in the books, but nobody uses and nobody has an intent to use. That's really no question on that would need to be vacated eventually, but that isn't in question. It's that old road at the beginning between the two entities of S. And so
I think it's just really confusing out there. To me, from what I understand, the gradients sit on the original right of way. So at some point in time, I would like to know who put the gradients in there. And who put them on the right of way. Right. And then obviously because they're on the right of way, the road got moved down into a floodway. So, and now we're gonna supposedly have to build a turnaround and gates and stuff as part of this whole thing. So I think it would be best if everyone, all parties were out there, the engineers, and we could see what it really is. Because it's, and then where is the river? I didn't walk back and through the woods, so. accessible to the. Well, somebody took it upon themselves to mow the road. I don't know if the county moved the road. But it's arrangements are on the high road and the turnaround is in the floodplain, which now we have to deal with and put a turnaround by needs or I don't know.
You have any input, Jeff?
Surely it is.
Oh, Shirley, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just hard because the sound is coming in and out, so I can't tell when there's a pause, and I don't want to interrupt anybody. But it's pausing and the sound is coming in and out. The question, not the question I have, but this is a kind of an easy issue we're dealing with here. I think we just need to get that road vacated, period. This was discussed back in 1976, and the Board of Supervisors at the time, I think, got busy and just kind of forgot. But this was discussed back in 1976. So I think we need to, I agree with Mark Vic here, that we need to move ahead and vacate this road and move beyond this. That's my input.
Does, Jeff, does Mike have all of this road defined all the way back to the extent or the turnaround? Oh, no, not just the turnaround. I mean, the whole entire piece of it.
I believe not. I think it's just to that turnaround,
Just
because
that turnaround.
otherwise you're dealing with a lot extra for him
Right.
to go back there. That's why we didn't go back in there. We just went up to the turnaround.
Because if it gets vacated, then it just goes
Then
back.
it will just go back. Right. So that would be a lot of work for him. For nothing. I mean, basically.
So and this is a procedural thing that maybe you don't know the answer to, we need to work with Andy, but do you want to do the vacation of that first section, the questionable one, separate from all the rest of that? All of it.
I think that would be a very valid question.
And I would say, yeah, if we don't end, just vacate the whole thing, be done in one shot. It's gotta be done, otherwise it's gonna keep coming up next time and the next time and the next time till you get all three chunks. There'd probably be two that go
There
to
is,
whole
yeah.
52, so you got about three different parcels there. You would just make one vacation and be done.
It'd be nice to get it cleaned up.
Just cleaned up. There's like 65% of them roads on the 1956 map that still exists today that haven't been cleaned up. I mean, I don't know where they're just, yeah, there's like these roads that are out
You
there.
could have a full-time, or just researching history and vacating roads.
Yeah.
3 years.
So I suggest, as long as we got it all out there, just vacate the holes. Yeah, I mean, and if that's all right with them, I would say vacate the whole thing, just get them done, but because.
Does Jeff, do you feel comfortable talking with Andy to get that paperwork ready, or does someone on the board need to talk to him? But I think the first step usually is to set a public hearing, and then that gives all the people involved a chance to say their opinion on it.
Yep.
And so Andy usually prepares that paperwork, so we have the wording and who needs to be contacted and so on.
I could get with Mike Schimmer too, because he's been involved in it quite a bit.
Was everyone comfortable with going forward with this?
Yeah.
I guess I had a question though, the landowners, if it's okay, who put the grain bins in?
I followed it. But that road that goes by the grain bins there, Mark, you know, the current,
Yeah.
that's where it was when those grain bins were put in. That road was right there when those grain bins were put in.
But it was still public, right?
We didn't know that. We did not know that, Mark.
We were not
That
aware of
was-
this.
We didn't know that. The trail went right through the grain bins, or and through the shed that's been there. The shed that is past the grain bins that it goes through was there when we bought the farm. That's probably 100 years old, that shed. The other shed that's in the back that it goes through, beyond those red gates that were locked, I don't know if you walk back that far, was there when we bought the farm. And that one's probably at least 80 years old. There is no river that this trail goes to. There's two creeks that flood, and that's it. And then it goes up the hill to 52. So
I'll, if you don't mind, I'll say that again, and so people online can maybe hear better too, that the point is that the grain bins and the sheds and such were there before this owner but they were there built after the road was already moved. It wasn't that the bins were built and then they moved the road. It was that the road was built and nobody knew that this old road existed. Like Mark's point, there's a
Come
lot
back
of roads.
1856 is the year you gotta go back to find the map on all these. That starts.
Shirley had a comment.
Thank you, Steve. Do you need a motion, Ben, to set a public hearing? Or are you going to have the paperwork drawn up first and then we'll set a public hearing?
Right. We need to have the paperwork before we can set the public hearing. So between Jeff and Mike, they'll talk with Andy to get whatever paperwork we need ready to set the first public hearing.
Thank you.
And that would be on the whole works thing, just clean the whole thing up from point A to, it'd be going over to old 52.
And I'll reiterate one more time, this should be a separate issue from the realignment, or whatever they call the
Turnaround.
establishing the current road needs to get done no matter what. I mean, like out by my house, the road wasn't sitting where the right of way was, so they came in and did a re-establish of the road so that the map shows where the road actually is. And part of that process, then they vacated what old road wasn't needed. And so that part of it needs to get done no matter what, because we want our road to sit on our property.
So Jeff, between Jeff and Mike, they can establish this to get this on the agenda so we can finalize that.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, might as well take the chair.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Is there just that one project? Just to update you on the blade that was at John Deere machine 132, that's done. We went and picked it up this morning, so. That went fairly. Yeah, I stopped there on Friday and they just had gotten it started late morning and they had some, guards and everything to put on it, but they had the machine running and so, yeah, we went and picked it up this morning and brought it back to Ridgeway, so yeah, they did, awesome. I think I'm over 2 weeks, I think. I mean, and it probably hit them at a decent time too, as far as before harvest starts.
Yeah, in between equipment.
And they weren't terribly busy in the shop, so.
Did they give us a warranty on that?
There should be, yeah, so.
30 feet or 30
Well,
seconds?
I could ask them, see what they say, but
30 minutes. 30 minutes or 30 miles.
I got faith in them. Pictures there, that's from Bridge 26. They got that all backfilled. We got it rocked. Actually, we're just putting the end markers on it today on the box culvert, and Todd will get that seeded. It'll probably take him a day or two to get that seeded. There's quite a bit to seed in there. We'll probably leave the road closed signs there for now, just to slow traffic down, but we'll take the fence. It'll be passable, but just to get our work done now so that we can park right on the road and we'll have to kind of watch it too, because we do get some moisture. It'll probably settle a little bit, so we'll have to kind of babysit a little bit, but that project went along pretty good as well. Guys are still digging on Conover. We got about 3 miles so far.
Almost a town line.
Then we got about 1.5 miles left to do. We're just, right now,
Right into Conover.
we're just, yeah, between 195th and Conover right now is where we're at. So they made pretty good time. And down there, where we're dumping it, we're right on the straight stretch just south of town.
Just done mine.
They've been making pretty good progress on that. And then there was a few spots south of that that we had added. I think it was last year, we added some dirt in there, so. But, yeah, so far it's been
I
pretty
think we
good.
got some past the town line that we did last year when we did the dishes on town line.
Yeah.
They've got built up.
Yeah.
So we're getting,
Yeah,
so we probably past town line, we've got maybe 2 miles more or so.
yeah. Then there'll be some on that last stretch, so hopefully there's a few spots that we still definitely use some there. So we'll have to see when we get done with Conover, what we have left. We could always pick another road or something to get some material. It'd be nice to try to get it done here.
So I think if we could get it done and have a winter to let it settle and be ready for what we're
Right.
planning for next year, that's
Yeah.
really a plus.
Resurfacing, brewings are resurfacing. They have, right now they're in Dan's area. Talked to Chuck this morning, he thought 1.5 days there, 1.5 days left at Pat's. And then we're gonna finish our rock the Conover Road up to probably Conover. The whole road's down, but we're gonna rock to Conover, then we'll take the trucks the other way. Then we'll just go through Still, stay off the gravels, because we don't really want to pound that all down once we got new rock
on it. Yeah.
Then when we get done with that, we'll probably just have to rock that stretch ourselves, or, I won't penalize. Burning's penalty date is this Friday, to be done. But being we're on that road, we're not gonna penalize them for that, so either we'll just haul it or we'll talk to them, but I'm hoping we can get it done this month in Conover Road, I'm hoping. We'll see how everything goes. I was gonna report that we had all the blades out running today, but the rain kind of mysteriously
Disappeared.
went elsewhere. They did get about 2.5 inches in Bluffton though, Friday
That's what they
night.
said.
Because
George got nothing and then Bluffton had 2.5 or 3.
Troy had sent me a text. I watched the weather on Friday night and Channel 7 and they showed a cell up there, so I got a hold of Troy and asked if it was raining. He said, no, it was rumbling. And 2.5 hours later, he sent me a picture of his rain gauge and he had 2.5 inches of rain.
And some of them, they live north of Knob Hill or the old Motters, or Knob Hill, I mean, probably 2 miles, they had 1 inch and 2/10, but.
Yeah.
So they're feeling pretty good.
They got rain, but everybody, it must have been just a
Just
small
that
area.
way.
Yeah, I was looking yesterday. all
Lime
it's like, where
Springs
is it?
had 3 inches too, they said.
Yeah, but we just,
The Seed Savers, there was having an event. It got over into rain.
Yeah.
Mm.
That'd be the same as the.
you know, yeah,
And I'm not, but in my 1.5 from the spot.
The rain continues.
yeah,
We got about probably 10 raindrops in Stillville.
yeah. Last Wednesday, Dan and myself, we interviewed 6 applicants for the foreman position. That went pretty good. Is our recommendation. Like to have you guys okay, Darren Varga for the position of foreman.
The interviews went real well.
Yeah.
All good applicants. I mean, they really were, which makes it a lot tougher,
Yeah,
but ultimately you have to.
not an easy,
One.
it's not an easy task.
And he's from Fort, so that's his area.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
Second.
And then a second to approve Darren Barta as for the foreman position. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
And with that, and we advertise for his position.
Yeah, keep rolling.
We'll get that out probably today.
You'll do the one week
1 week.
internal advertising first.
Yeah, and I would suspect,
As people shift around, eventually you'll have to go to the paper,
Right.
but until you get a week without anybody who wants to move.
yeah,
Because Darren was an assistant foreman and
Yeah, okay.
yeah, so we'll be looking for a maintenance worker one for his, so. Just, if you guys thought any on Todd, if he could go to that roadside conference, just so he could get registered, if you guys are okay with that. I just, and need to know so I can let him know, and that was October 4th through the 6th.
I think he should.
I'm always in
just-
favor of more education, so I would be in favor of Todd attending that conference as well. It benefits the whole county.
does the conference all entail, you know?
Oh, they have all the roadside guys there, and they show videos, talk about new things, invasive species, weeds. Present. We did the one last year, it might be 2 years, maybe it was last year. They put that on, and it was everybody from basically the state, or most of them from the state of Iowa.
So it'll be similar to the one that was at Peebo, only it's
Yeah, it's Cedar Falls.
Cedar Falls, but Todd didn't probably get to go to that one, or wasn't the roadside manager, so.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful. I think that there's news about being compliant with the DNR of the state. I mean, it's important.
I guess he isn't really the right side. I mean, that, he's just a tech or whatever right now.
What's the cost of the registration?
It's $95 for the class. And then hotel would be, hotel is $115 a night.
Where do they hold it? Down Des Moines?
Cedar Falls. Yeah.
I think two agree that you probably need a third person to say, go ahead before you.
I guess, I don't know.
Well, if you can learn something.
Why this would hurt anything to learn something. Sorry, Dan, the feed is really delayed. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you can learn something about the invasive weeds and what people are doing statewide to try and get a little back and hold this under control, I guess I'm okay with it.
Okay. 360th Street. Just to mention this, he did call me back.
This is the one with the rip out and stuff in the ditch. Yep.
So I did get in contact with him. I called him the 31st of July. He called me the next day. He's been out of town. Talked to him about the riprap and the fence. He does have the gates there. Said when he purchased the property, the gates were open. They weren't locked or anything, which would have been, he said the one post was not very good shape, so he pulled them out of there. As far as the riprap, he stated he didn't realize he needed a permit to do any work in there, so I guess it's kind of up to what you guys want to do going forward. I mean, we're gonna put the gates up, or he'll put the gates up. We have to determine, I think we could probably put them further down so it doesn't interfere with where his shed is, because he uses that shed off to the side, I think, quite a bit. So we could work with them that way and put it down there. But it's just a matter of what do you guys want to do with the riprap? He's gonna be home, he said, on the 18th, he's coming home of August, so it'll be a Friday, and then he'll be home like that following week or two, but he must travel quite a bit. So unless you want him to come up here and talk to you, or
If it's interfering with somebody having to travel, that with farm equipment, he's gonna have to.
I mean, it's just a matter of, do you want to remove it, or do you want him to come up here and talk to you guys, or remove some of it?
I would say whatever you feel is
Yeah,
a reasonable passage distance for the people that are gonna be using that.
Yes.
And if he's agreeing, but would be willing to remove what we need to do, that's.
Because that one landowner was concerned with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that definitely needs fixing on that front.
Right, I mean, so they can, so it doesn't really choke off their entrance, I feel. The rest of it, I mean,
It ain't gonna affect anybody.
for us, really, because we don't plow it. If we have to go down through there with something, you know, with a loader or whatever, most likely we would come from the west side. Not saying we want to come out that side, and there's asphalt there, but it kind of is what it is. I mean, it's still our road, you know, asphalt in there, but as far as the riprap for us, it really, yeah, you probably shouldn't have put it there.
It doesn't, does it stick above the road?
And it does, yeah. Plowing, I wouldn't like it at all,
No.
but we don't plow that. We turn around right up above it, but yeah, he hits that in the winter time, he's gonna know it. I mean, when it sticks up above the ring.
Starts filling in with snow.
Seems to me that he could come to the board, and if he can get his neighbors to agree to an easement, you could vacate that to him, as long as he maintains an easement for access for his neighbors.
I think that would probably be.
That would be the cleanest from your perspective, but that's gonna take a lot of people agreeing to it.
Do it, yeah.
Otherwise, you tell him that he needs to make it so they're happy, they can get in and out, and if he doesn't, you're going to.
You know, if it was below road level where he did it, it wouldn't be so bad. But
At least the width of it. So if a blade has to deal with it in the future, it's not gonna be taking a moldboard off.
That,
Yeah.
that riprap is right up next to the road within 1/4 of an inch or less. Very large riprap right next to the road on our right of way.
I never did measure how wide it was, but yeah, I mean, like Shirley said, it's right up to the edge.
Doesn't look like a 14-foot moldboard.
Probably not.
Yeah, like I say, it was below road level, so it ain't gonna bother anybody's equipment going down through
Put the
there.
onus, if he wants to keep it in place, put the onus on him to get the agreement of the other property owners so we can get rid of it. Would be a nice fix.
And I know that Andy's office has assisted Mike in the engineer's office to put together the easements if he can get them to agree to them.
Yeah.
But that's between him and the neighbors then, and not,
I mean, if
you don't have to get into it.
I'd say if he comes in with the easement agreements from all the neighbors, I would say go ahead with the,
Vacation.
yeah.
If they don't agree, then it's to the point where he either needs to get it wide enough that they're happy, or you're gonna go in there and get it wide enough. which
I'd
is
say
gonna-
you'd have to come in with at least a 20-foot wide there.
Yeah, I would say
Clean it out
we
20
predetermined with that.
with
We're
the
gonna demand that the rock is removed
move.
too.
Yeah,
If he wants to gravel it down, remove to a 20-foot width and gravel it down and remove that amount of riprap, would that work in your mind, Jeff?
Well, the worst of it now is it's all asphalt. It's asphalt going right from the top of 360 down, that's all asphalt.
shit.
And the riprap is like right up to it.
Move the riprap back and he can still get it right away and put gravel on the side, on shoulder to the side of it. Well, that'd
If
be,
you want me to call him and see if he wanted to come up and talk to you guys then, or?
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, we could explain to him, you get the.
He said he would be back that 21st, so maybe I'll try and get a hold of him and tell him. Can put him on board on the agenda for the 23rd.
What's his name, just so I know when he calls in? I forgot already.
Yeah.
Eel.
Maybe better.
oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just.
It's right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's right there.
yeah.
360th Street.
Yeah.
Or Street.
Yeah.
I have a quick couple things. When I drove that with Jeff the other day and took a look at it, two things bother me on this. Is that one, no permit was asked for. There was absolutely no communication from this individual to put the riprap in there. He's also using a lot of storage space on our right of way down by that shed. We've asked people not to take just a couple shovelfuls of gravel off our roads for their own potholes in their driveway. And we took those pretty seriously. This is a major road project that happened out there without permission, without permits. I think we need to really look at this one seriously, and I want to hear from the other landowners what type of access they would need, and do they use that Class C road to access their fields back in there? I'd really like to hear from the neighbors.
Because he does have a lot. It's a shed, I mean, there's balance, so.
His equipment stuff has to clear the right of way
Right.
that would limit the access of the other property owners, and his deer feeders in the road, everything that you showed on those pictures.
Yeah.
That's gotta go.
Yeah.
There would be something nice to leave you out of it, if he could just negotiate with his neighbors directly, but if he can't, you're gonna get involved.
We have to.
Then he's gonna have to clean it up.
It's not unlike the picture of somebody in Stillville's garage sitting out in the right of way, basically. And what are we gonna do about that?
That one where. Get that.
Well,
I mean, and that's why, that's not the only.
Oh, no, we don't.
Out there, I mean, a lot.
It's similar to the Horn Hollow.
I was gonna, well, that's why.
We're thinking, he's saying that he didn't know it was part of the road, and he thought it was his driveway.
In court,
Those people built a,
There's three
green bins, three big things, it was on the road, and it is, but.
So
oh, yeah.
well, I was thinking about this situation, it's like we need to look at it more carefully. It hasn't been vacated yet, so
removing his stuff though from the road right away right now is not an unreasonable request.
No, that should be out of there right now.
Yeah. Especially when it's all right.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with Earl, I mean, if gravel was removed and fill, it's.
And even we've had in the past where people have planted corn in the right of way.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
No.
the board has gone in and taken out, so.
yeah.
So he isn't, I mean, maybe he's willing to work with you and it'd be a friendly thing, but that can get hairy too.
Yeah.
You have to go in and do it, so.
So I think.
That's all I think is that meet with him to see where he's set,
At what cost? I mean, this shouldn't be any cost to us.
No, and he didn't put it back the way it was.
He did say, we tore out a lot of trees going down to his, on both sides of the road, because he said it was pretty woolly in there. But trees is one thing, but when you add all this, that's
That's another.
kind of a different
If you
name.
wanna clean it up and just make it like it was.
Right.
The dirt, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's just
generally
good.
don't have any problem if somebody wants to calls us up and say there's a few trees there, do you mind if we
Clean
get
them
them
out.
out of there? Absolutely, go for it, you know?
Or if there's a washout and we put dirt in there,
Right. I
move
mean,
it over so we can mow it or something.
this is
It's a whole different deal.
above and beyond. So,
You got that right.
That's how I'm gonna look at it.
It's not a cheap project on his,
No.
either, absolutely.
but that's not our problem.
Ben, do we have any monies from previous budgets that were unused by the road department that may be something we could consider using and putting towards trucks?
all of road budget money is separate and it rolls over each year and is considered when you do the budget. So any that was left over from previous years has already been
We got nothing,
taken into consideration.
so we got nothing available. And I was just looking, the truck problems we have and our ability and need to order some more trucks is really gonna be pressing. But looking at some of the frame damage and stuff in the box frames that we're dealing with,
Oh, yeah.
that's serious.
Through the.
Every year we have a lot of money left because you budget being hopeful that things can get done before the end of June and they don't. But then you just start really just rolling that money over and already kind of designating it for those projects just are later.
That's the bad thing now is you ordered before, you didn't have to wait 2 years.
Choose again.
It's all,
know, physically here, now it's.
messes up budget wise, trying to plan.
Well, it looks like you have a lot of money in the budget, but or a lot of money in the fund, but that's because you're waiting to do all these things, to buy all these things. That's why I think it's probably a good idea to be at least getting those quotes for bids for another maintainer, because you know it's not gonna happen this year. So even if you've got this year's money spent, it's not gonna happen this year anyway. So you might as well get it in place if they come in, reasonably.
Well, the same with trucks, because if we're looking at those frames, some of those frames, we could have failures on what more, how many possible trucks might we have frame failures on? If we're going down the road and all of a sudden the frame is going like this.
There's, older ones, we probably have.
Those ones in the fleet right now, I think are 2003s. They're 20 years old.
Yep.
But we're not the nicest, we're in the worst elements and
We're the worst.
Just touching up on these permits too. What Ben had talked about with the DOT, that any that are moving overweight, them have to be signed by a consultant or right now, if somebody calls, we technically, DOT says you cannot do that anymore. You have to have
A PE or.
or you have to pay a consultant. But the thing with that is, so for the cost, who has to pay that extra cost? I mean, so if say you have to get a consultant, who's gonna pay for that?
If we secure the engineer for that part-time duty for Howard County,
I think,
should take care of that.
yeah, I think that would work, yes. But from whenever, how soon, what the timetable is.
Yeah, I know.
And sometimes when these people call in or get an email, it's usually not, we'll do it like in a week. It's like,
They need to move it
if they want it like today or tomorrow. I mean, it's usually a sense of urgency, usually for them. So that's what they like right now. And the DOT was pretty firm on you do not do that.
So we have a waiting period on permits then. And how close are we to, any idea how close we are on that work that Andy's doing?
That was hopefully gonna be on next week's agenda. So you could either say no permits this week and get some people are gonna be upset. Or you authorize Jeff to work with one of the consulting engineer firms to sign them.
And then you have a cost, so then who pays for the cost? I mean, you feel.
An engineer firm, $200 to review them and sign them, and then you only charge 40 to the customer.
Because you really, we don't charge the customer for it now, so.
I think we're just gonna have to pause the permits and hopefully we can get this resolved by next week.
Well, I think if
It's an
somebody.
unfortunate situation we're in, but remember the cards we were dealt.
Can we temporarily approve a motion that people would have to pay for the additional cost if they needed it?
I think that was one of the options on that email.
I mean, if
We could have the cost.
if they absolutely need it, then they have to cost another $200.
They're gonna have to pay their
Here's what it's gonna cost, yeah.
So I guess I would motion that until we have somebody in place, that if somebody needs a permit, that they would have to shoulder the cost of the engineer certification on that
Consultant.
consultant, in addition to the permit cost. Otherwise,
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to wait.
we're gonna have to wait till we have a temporary in place. I would motion that.
Is there,
I would second it.
we have a motion and a second for anyone needing a permit for the time being would pay the extra cost of the consultant in order to get that permit. Is there any further discussion?
One quick question is, you just leave it up to Jeff, and do you know who you can contact?
I have no idea
Oh,
who
yeah.
to contact, to be honest.
I
Well,
think, again, if you talk to Nikki Stinn at the DOT, she might have some ideas for you. But on the alternative, we can just stop permitting and move as quickly as we can to secure a neighboring county engineer. I think we're looking at 1 week. Is that correct?
Well, but you said it. The other county is talking about it, their meeting today, so. Then we'd have to come back with the agreement.
Hopefully next week, that is possible.
Probably like 2 weeks. But somebody may need an emergency, I mean, might have to have something, they gotta move through the county.
I think Mark's right. I think that's something we need just to do for the temporary time until we do get someone secured. At least it gives the option for
Does, I
someone
mean,
to
would
apply.
Erdman Engineering is local, and they have professional engineers, would they be willing to? You might contact them, otherwise Chuck Fritzen does our bridge inspection, maybe they would be willing to supply a consultant, but as long as you're passing that cost on to the customer, and they know that if they can't wait the week or two it takes, that they have to pay for it.
I don't think the customers would be very happy if they have.
Well,
to pay.
they can wait, man.
Then they can wait or they can pay, I mean, that's what the motion says in their way.
I'm just, if somebody has to move through the county with something.
If they have to pay a couple $100 for a permit, it's cheaper than getting the fines for an overweight, so.
Or they could have, if they could show financial hardship, perhaps we could consider it. Maybe I'll call Nikki and see what she.
just see what the cost,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any other further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Did Shirley vote aye?
I was on mute. I did vote aye.
Okay, good.
Motion carries unanimously.
And then as far as the right of way permits, I have a couple here. I can sign them, but then I'll also have probably you sign them. I looked at one on Friday, and then I do have some oversized ones here. And that, if you want to sign that also on these for the single trip and the annual oversize permits, I can sign, but you want to sign them also?
I probably should.
Okay, because there's a few here, so.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this was from Andy just to get your approval for a consultant or a PE, so. Okay, I think that's all right.
I had a question about this, the Horn Hollow thing.
Yep.
And there was talk about how we'd have to pay, put in a turnaround and put gates up. And even though we still own the right of way that grain bins are sitting on. Is that a normal thing? We'd have to put up gates there?
Yeah, it's not out of the ordinary.
But if that's their driveway, we put gates up.
Well, basically, they want to put the gates there to keep people from going back there.
Well, do we do that in every, anyone wants gates, we put gates up so people can't go in their driveway?
To me, it'd be a pain, because I mean, you're gonna have to.
I mean, I don't know why we put gates up, more than anyone else's driveway would be gated.
That's basically because that's a Class C road, isn't it?
Well,
No, you're talking about the driveway.
this is just,
So,
this is just a dead end.
Okay.
And it's road.
It's dead end right now. Yeah.
Otherwise, every other dead end road, we'd have to put gates up on the end of it. It's like, that's not,
And if we vacate the rest of the right of way, it's a dead end road.
and it is anyway, right now, because of the way we changed it, so. I don't know why we're putting gates in.
I agree with you, Mark. I questioned that.
If somebody wants to put gates in,
Sure about it.
if that's their driveway at the end of the road, if they want to put gates up, but that shouldn't be our expense. And if we actually still own the right of way to the road that was abandoned,
Yeah, because we would have the right of way up to.
no, do we plow into part of that, make our turnaround up there?
Right now, we do,
Bargaining with somebody else to.
because we basically turn in right into this driveway there. It would be probably easier for us if there wasn't any gates there, just for us for turning around. We wouldn't have to worry about backing into a gate or sliding into a gate or something, you know, but not saying that the gates can't be put up,
But I don't know why we are expense, they get right in looking, and if we still own the right of way to the old road, what's, you know, can that be part of the turnaround, really going down into the floodplain to turn around? Anyway, I guess that's why I would like a little closer examination of what we actually own and don't own, what beginning and stops, and if that road dead ends right now anyway, to the driveway, I don't know why we would be putting up gates.
right?
If they want to, they can.
Yes, like anybody else.
Yeah.
But we have to define our new right of way.
Yeah.
With the new road,
Right.
which is a whole separate thing. I think it should be considered in the whole process. We don't give away something that we would want to have back before we decide where to turn around and,
Or create precedent.
because it's kind of the same thing up at the end of that road in Bear Creek now, that, you know, well, what he did and didn't do, and who moved it, when did it happen, and were the gates down or up or bad shape?
And then I think I recall Corbin saying that he had sold those grain bins and the guy never came to get them.
Get them, yeah, he did say that when we were out there that time. But that's been, I think, how many years ago?
A couple of years at least.
So, but,
I think that's,
That might-
that might be a non-sale.
right, I would kind of guess if we hadn't gotten this.
I guess before everything is done, we should establish who's gonna pay for what, where that's gonna be, but don't give away road. Don't give away our right of way unless we think that's where a better turnaround would be then.
And maybe, I mean, if you decide to vacate it, and if he wants to put the gates on his end, you know.
Yeah.
That's,
I guess that would be fair. I think he would be happy probably that it's gonna get vacated anyway, in my opinion. And
We can be doing our part to get
you know,
rid of it.
that way it cleans it up, and then if he wants to put the gates in, then he puts the gates and,
it's kind of a mess. That's what it is.
yeah.
Are we doing any crack sealing?
Not yet, but we have the attachment on the machine. Yeah, actually, Isaac had that. We bought that attachment for our patcher, because we were gonna have our guys do that, but I think once this dirt stuff calms down, we got a few rows to do.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was the intention, that we were gonna do some of these ourselves, just for, I know there was some on V64 that Isaac wanted done. There wasn't too many, but there was some. So we thought with that attachment, it's just been kind of nuts with everything going on, and then with the dirt, it's been a kind of a big project. We don't have too many extra guys around to do it, so I'm hoping we can.
No, and I know a couple of guys there in the maintenance shop are getting a little nervous too about running the truck so hard this summer and then not having them ready for winter.
You know, that's why I'm kind of hoping we can get the biggest share. We still have some maintenance to do with the rubber tire machine, some culvert work, but we've kind of haven't been doing much of it. We got Decorah, Locust, and Ridgeway. We have to get to Fort and Ocean yet, but once we got to Oliver, we just put 2 machines on it so we could.
And I don't know if all of you have heard or not, we had a little incident with that rubber tire loader last week.
Yeah,
Or got lost in the dust on the road and got a little too far off on the shoulder and laid it down.
yeah,
Luckily, no one was hurt
Yeah,
and there
luckily
was
it's all
minimal
right.
damage to the
Yeah,
machine.
yeah.
Little ding in it is all.
Truck ended up passing them and it was dusty, and then he ended up getting too close to the edge, and luckily the ditch wasn't very deep, and Tanner didn't get hurt, was the main thing. It sprinkled on the right-hand side, a couple of the guards or the
Shields.
shields, but I mean, considering what it, I mean, it could have.
Got around right away, nothing, yeah.
Yeah, we brought our excavator over there, or track one, and tipped it over, and let it set for a while, and then Bill was there, and we got it started back up, and then he dug the rest of the day, once we got it going, so, yeah.
That's it off.
Yeah, so. Yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else. I got some paperwork for you, Dan, but I'll wait till done.
Okay. Well, just done. Does anyone have anything else? If not, I did.
Motion to adjourn.
Here we go.
Second.
We got a motion and a second for adjournment, and all those in favor say aye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna sign off. Bye.
Vacation.
Safe travels.
Thank you.